SEC East, spring questions here. I've got big ones, and we're going to go through them quick, Immunity. We're going to go through them quick because I've got them for every program here. One of them is a national storyline, and that is the Georgia quarterback situation. They won the national championship last year, again, and they're going to be one of the preseason favorites, again. And I am alleged to never talk about Georgia. If I believe everything they say about me in the comments, I never talk about Georgia. So let's talk about the University of Georgia, my home state. Carson Beck is going to be the starting quarterback here. I hate to spoil things. Most of the locals know that, but I will reiterate, just for public consumption, I think Carson Beck's going to be the starting quarterback there. However, it's not the worst thing in the world to have some competition in the spring. Now, there are a lot of people talking in a lot of different directions about how Kirby Smart could have had his pick of any offensive coordinator out there, and he chose to elevate Mike Bobo from in-house. I'm old enough to remember the Fire Bobo campaigns every other week at Georgia in the SEC. Well, he gets another shot at it here. This is not hard to figure out. Number one, Kirby Smart has pretty much perfected their process over there and their way of doing things. And it's not the craziest concept in the world for him to look around and say, we've got this thing so dialed in, any of a number of people could be effective coordinators here. He came from a place that was like that for a long time, and that is Alabama. And so he's got it like that. And so it did not jump out to me in the least, as I told you already, that he elevated Bobo. But I thought you were talking about quarterback, Josh. I am. I'm telling you one of the reasons behind Kirby Smart elevating Mike Bobo is if you're going to have a first-year fill-in-the-blank, in this case quarterback, starting for you, what you don't want is him having to learn new terminology and learn a new offense in the spring, or learn new anything in the spring for that matter. Now, Kirby, no matter who he brought in, was probably going to have that guy do things their way, so there wasn't going to be a whole lot of verbiage that was new to the table anyway. But now there's absolutely nothing new to learn. It's just continuing to rep what you've always repped, and there's a different sounding voice telling you what to do, but he's telling you the same things. And so Carson Beck, keep an eye on that. I was over there when they played Tennessee and talked to their staff, and I asked them. Now, that's in the middle of Stetson Bennett's season, and he's going to end up going to New York, and I asked them then if Stetson went down right now, or let's just not be so morbid about it, this time next year, who is it? And most of them said, it's probably going to be Beck. He looks the best. It's going to be Beck. And I believe him on that. So let's take a look at Carson Beck this spring. Let's take a look at Graham Mertz this spring. What you talking about Wisconsin for? I'm not. He transferred to Florida. Did you know that? I think most of you did. Most of you tuned in are diehards. But if you didn't, someone may have come back from their honeymoon. Someone may have done the irresponsible thing of spending Christmas with their family instead of being locked into the transfer portal. And shame on you if you are that person. We kid. We're here for you to remind you the Graham Mertzes of the world were on the move while you were focusing on responsible things around the holidays. And he is now a Florida Gator and may very well be their starting quarterback. In fact, if he's not, I don't know who will be. I had someone come to me the other day, not come at me, but come to me the other day and said, I've got a bold prediction for you. And I said, it's not bold prediction season yet. See me in August. He said, nope, I got to get this off my chest now. And his reason was a lot of people are going to be saying what I'm saying to you. He said, Graham Mertz is the next Hendon Hooker. I paused. As I thought something else was coming behind it, and nothing did. That was the entirety of the prediction. I am hesitant to buy into that, but crazier things have happened. I will just say, for the record, I don't think that will be one of the more popular predictions that we get in August. But Billy Napier has got to hitch his wagon to the horses he's got. And it may very well be that Graham Mertz is a guy who is able to do big things for Florida this year. They got a big void to fill. It's mock draft season, you know. Some people are suggesting that Anthony Richardson may be as high as the #1 overall player taken in the draft. Let me pause and take a sip from the chalice while you ponder that. Not every opinion that is disseminated from this company is reflected in the minds of the other people who work at this company. The depth behind him is nil. So it's got to be Graham Mertz, and we need to keep a close eye on him this fall. They open at Utah, by the way, and while at the moment that is scheduled as a Saturday game, Should they move that to a Thursday night game, Late Kick Live from Salt Lake City could happen. I'm just putting it out there. Next up, Tennessee. Defense. When you think of Tennessee, when you think of garbage, think of Hakeem. When you think of defense, think Tennessee. They finished, where's the number? 44th in the country in points per game this last year. Is that good enough? Well, it wasn't good enough to do everything they wanted to do. It was good enough to, let's be real, their offense was good enough to overcome that. I want to ask you, as we watch the Volunteers go through spring practice, as everyone's talking about Joe Milton versus Nico Iamaleava, which we will be too at quarterback, how good do they need to be at defense? Because this is one of those situations where they don't need to be a top 10 unit. They're going to score enough. So they were 44th. I would focus on becoming a top 25 unit, top 20 unit. You can always have higher aspirations. You want to work to a standard. I get all that. I don't have to because I am not Tennessee. I sit here and talk about Tennessee. I have a Tennessee-flavored mysterious liquid in the chalice, but I'm a realist. If they're a number 20 overall defensive product, they're good enough to compete for a playoff spot in a national championship. And that really, outside of that quarterback battle, that's what I'll be watching in Knoxville starting this spring. They play, and Jesse, I need you to look this up for me. Oh, never mind. It's on there. Thank you. They play in Nashville to start the season. Is that right? So Tennessee's first game is across the river from my apartment. We could see Tennessee play from our office building in week 1 against Virginia. Interesting. Okay, well, I did not know that. I actually had not broken down the schedules yet. So that's that. Let's watch defense for Tennessee. South Carolina, going to stay on the defensive side of the ball for them. Pass rush. Need it to develop, and they're going to need to rely on some young kids to come through pretty quickly for them. They're losing Jordan Birch, which is not the most cataclysmic development in the history of South Carolina football. I'll grant you that. But he was a warm, dependable body that had been a highly rated recruit, and you were still hoping his best football was ahead of him. Pickens is gone. They lose 3 of their top 5 pass rushers. It wasn't a phenomenal unit to begin with last year. But in needing to improve, you have pieces to replace, and also they've got a combination, as do most teams, of portal guys and then young guys coming in through recruiting. And spring football is going to be about seeing how quickly we can expedite those guys' development. I'm not sure how much we'll learn through just a spring game of watching them, but the kind of intel that I'll be looking for out of Columbia is kind of like we talked about with LSU the other night. Are you a finished product? No, of course you're not. What kind of potential do you think you have now that maybe you didn't know about 4 weeks ago when you started spring ball? At Kentucky, their offensive line was bad last year. It's not all their fault. Bama swiped their offensive line coach at the 11th and a half hour, Eric Wolford. So they gave up 47 sacks last year. You can either say that was last in the SEC or it led the SEC. It was really bad. No one was worse in the SEC. And I don't necessarily know that there's a ton of promise that it improves this year, but crazier things have happened. Hey, if you're into returning starters, they returned 4 or 5, and they brought in 2 transfers. Good thing, bad thing, I don't know. I also have the handy Post-it pop here at Missouri. Can Sam Horn make a move? Can he secure that starting quarterback position? He redshirted during the 2022 season. They need him to be big. And also Vandy, which we could also throw a rock out the window and hit. Just very interested in how much that 2022 signing class emerges. And that's not one player. They need kind of wholesale improvement across the board. But remember, they beat Kentucky last year. Vandy played some good football down the stretch, which if you have an emerging freshman class is when you start to see that sort of gain some traction. So that's what we're looking for in the SEC East this spring. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.